So this is one that is perhaps obvious for a performance, but you should use as a game master is have an intermission. Have a point in the night. Doesn't have to be exactly halfway, but at some point go, all right, we're gonna have an intermission. Get a drink. Use the bathroom, and you go to the bathroom, sit at the table, and think, okay, what has happened? What were the outcomes of my scene prompts? I'm going to write one more scene prompt, maybe two, and it'll be the big finale or the cliffhanger to the end of my session. So take a moment. It's okay to sit there and go, all right, here's what I did. Here's a neat scene prompt. Write a couple. Obviously, again, don't write the conclusion, but say, how are all these things going to come to a head? So use an intermission to your advantage to give yourself the time to adapt, because you've got 5 brains versus your 1 brain, so they're going to be thinking of information faster than you.
But it's not a competition.
But it's not a competition. But the point is you need that time just to catch up and follow the threads.
As a player, you should also use this time usefully. How many of you have had a session where at the beginning everybody's taking it very seriously and we're having some nice high fantasy fun, and at the end it devolves into some messy comedy fest and people have different levels of attention?
Alright, so some of these people have been to our show.
Exactly. So you can use this as a player. It is cooperative storytelling. Cooperative. You can use this time to think about how, if things are going off in a strange direction, how can you get them back on track? How can you keep your focus? How can you be on the same level as the game master and the rest of your players in this cooperative world-building exercise?
Okay, so the next note I have here is that we have microphones, and so we're winning.
I think we've come full circle. I think that was the beginning.
Oh, is that the beginning? Okay, so we've gone through all of our bullet points of what we've learned from performing a role-playing game on stage. And at this point, we can open up for questions. If any of the stuff we brought up was unclear, you want us to elaborate on it more, you have some, you want to know more about orcs and orphans of... Someone's raising their hand. Yes, sir, please.
Well, first of all, your information has been awesome. I was really
thank you.
to find that me and my D&D party actually do a lot of the things you said, so that was great.
It's best practice.
My question is, I write a lot of my own worlds, my own lore. I don't like anything Wizards does. I usually throw that away. Do you think it's possible to overwrite a world? Because I usually put a lot of information on Facebook for my players to read through, whole histories and everything. Sometimes I feel like I overdo it.
So, yeah, can you overdo it? Sure, yes. Yes, at some point, you can overdo it. I guess my advice would be is, this is something interesting in my world that I want the players to know about, but keep it short. And the other details, like we've said, you can then fill in. You might have an idea in your head, oh, there's this guy, he might do this thing. All right, throw it in when you need it, but don't put all the effort in up front. Save that fun revelation for the show, not the show, but for the game. So that's where I would say drawing the line is make a bullet pointed list of interesting things, but don't make each one a page to read. I mean, if you're a great writer, awesome, write some stuff, send it to us. It'll be cool indeed. But you see what I'm getting at.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And always keep your goal in mind. Your goal is to run a good game. This world building stuff on the side is great, but if it becomes a goal in and of itself, it's going to be working at cross purposes with the time you're spending at the table. Was that a good answer to your question?
That was awesome.
Perfect.
What happens, for example, Star Wars role-playing game? You run across the player who's the canon Nazi. It's that's not, the clones were not pre-programmed, therefore this is strict orders. No, they're pre-programmed. I'm the game master, it's my world, it's my canon. For example, we did Life of Canon in a Star Wars game, threw it out the window by killing Palpatine off, and earlier on made Jar Jar Binks the Chancellor.
That's a perfect way to
Don't worry, your Chancellor was over 5 minutes because Star Wars does not have handrails, he fell off the platform.
So for those of you who couldn't hear, the question is basically, what happens if you're in an established setting and you bump into the idea of canon? What's already established about that setting? If your goal is just to talk about how things work in the universe, just have a conversation about it, or read another book. But if you're out to tell a story, you're going to have to go off on your own and change how things work. So always take a setting and take canon. That's an awesome bow, by the way. Take it as a springboard. One piece of advice I guess I would give is that, okay, Star Wars is totally awesome. Well, then just rip it off and make your own setting. Okay, well, my universe is a little different, but Jedi totally exist. It works the same way it does in Star Wars, but the clone troopers aren't around. Because really, are we all here because we like Jedi? Cool. We're going to rip that off. And then just go with it. Is that making sense? Yeah. Or am I just telling you all the rip-offs? Yes. There's someone in the front. Oh, you have more to say?
Not really.
Not really? I just like talking. I got excited. I saw a lot of hands. There's a guy here in the front, second row.
My games tend to have a load of NPCs. Are there any tips you have for like giving them like personality through acting?
Yeah.
Yes. Walking into a scene with a character. We did this in Utah.
Oh, okay. So one thing I would say is you can use tips that we've given for players, in that for each NPC, you don't necessarily have to write a huge block of text, but give them a mantra. And so you can always recenter yourself on that character. Okay, here's my next character, and go, oh, his mantra is, I don't trust anyone. That's maybe not an exciting mantra, but you get what I mean, is that you distinctly made each one unique. Another thing that we've done as an improv exercise is using a small physical quirk to build an entire character. So at the gaming table, you're not necessarily up walking around, but when we're performing, we get up and move around, so this is a little easier for us. But as you walk into a scene, and all of a sudden you go, I brought this leg forward a little bit more. Why am I doing that? And then all of a sudden, let your mind just fill in the rest of the character, and you've made up the character on the spot. Oh, he's got a limp. That's because he's a farmer and he carries heavy bales of hay every day, and you just run with it. And so you can, if you don't have information to begin with, make it up from just the smallest piece of information. Is that what you wanted me to explain?
That's exactly what I wanted to.
I wanted to confer with my DM.
And keep in mind, having NPCs, it goes with the crafting beforehand. Leave it very limited, because the amount of information you're going to be able to convey about the character that you're playing as an NPC, unless they're going to keep coming back and back and back again, this is going to be something that they're likely only going to encounter once, and unless you're going to read a novel to them, the amount of information you need is very limited. So if you keep it simple, I guess is what I'm saying. Use the tricks he just said, and like one or two, I think the DMG and many other books say, work off stereotypes, do something, make it unique, but don't overdo it with the prep.
Robin, do you have anything you want to add? You're the one with the theater degree.
Well, I believe William Shakespeare. I don't know, just make it up. Yeah, well, it's that any small detail, in the same way as yes-anding with other characters, you can yes-and within a single character, and saying that limp, okay, within your own head, build on that, or just any small detail can become a large detail. But Sherlock Holmes that, where is this coming from? So, just let it develop naturally, I think, is the big thing. Yes, and...
Is that good? Is that enough information for you to run with?
Yeah, that should be good.
We can
I want to know what he has to say about it.
Oh, well, we asked him to sit up here just because he wore sunglasses today and the rest of us weren't. Yeah. So he's here to make us look cool. And Robin won the rock, paper, scissors contest to fill this seat.
Yeah.
So that's a good question.
Not the theater credentials?
Oh, no.
No, that was just a bonus.
Oh, no, not at all.
So I'm not going to let Mike talk. There's more hands. Yes. You. Yeah, with the giving me like a peace sign. Wait.
Go with yours. I picked the last one.
Oh, okay. Cheers. So, I find one thing with my characters is like pretty much their mantra, whether or not it was how I intended, always ends up being bonsai, and they're just like end up when I'm like trying to roleplay and maybe even do that yes and sort of thing, they end up being very spastic. Is there like any advice for making a more controlled character?
Well,
I would ask.
they're laughing at me because my character yells a lot. So one thing every character is going to have a little bit of yourself in it, so I wouldn't beat yourself up about it if there's like a common thread amongst all of them. Many of my characters have common threads. It's totally fine. So that's my first thing, is don't worry about it. We're not, Academy Award-winning actors. We're not, Daniel Day-Lewis and,
My left foot.
we're not method actors. So one, great, you're playing characters, you're already having fun. But to make them different, I would try and intentionally write a mantra against your intention, and you'll probably push it back in the other direction through play, but handicap yourself and give yourself that challenge. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say. So if you're like, oh, my characters are always just swashbuckling and jumping for the nearest chandelier, write yourself a mantra that's like, I prefer the company of women and books. What does that mean? Who knows? Find out and play, but that might reserve your character back a little bit before you jump right to bonsai.
You can also make a rule for yourself, like, I am not going to be the first one to take action.
That's boring.
Well, I would never suggest any of our players do that, but I mean, if you have somebody else in your adventuring party that seems like they want to be a leader and be the one that comes up with a plan, then yes and that, by all means. Let that be the thing that holds you back, because you're allowing them to do what they want to do.
I remember one come up with a plan, I just jump off.
You just jump on in. You Leroy Jenkins all of it.
Yes, there we go. Stick to the plan.
And I'd say that's not necessarily a bad thing. Prompting action as a player is a great thing, because otherwise, like, how many people have stalled out at a table because nobody knows what to do next? Taking bold action is a great character choice.
Yes, so that's why I don't want to discourage you from yes-anding your fellow players and jumping on their great ideas or bad ideas. That sounds awesome. Do we have any other... oh, the man in the Mario hat.
Thank you for noticing.
So very prominent.
I usually try, with my characters, I try to start off serious, but I'm not usually a serious person. Is it better to kind of make a character that fits your personality, I guess?
The short answer is yeah, it's fine to play a little bit to what you're going to find fun. Sometimes you're like, I gotta be super serious and I'm gonna write this character, and then you look at it and you're like, this character is boring and uninteresting, but I've gotta do it because this is a serious game. Well, don't write something that's not gonna be fun to play. So find the happy medium between things that'll be challenging for you to play, perhaps, but not necessarily boring for you to play. If you think playing a scholar is the most boring thing out there, don't write that scholar. Or write the scholar that has a drinking problem. And gets drunk and, throws magic missiles at the orcs because he's an elf and he's upset about being an elf. I think it's important not to get down on yourself. Just like, gosh, I always am a little silly in all of my characters. Are you having fun? Great. Then you're doing it right.
That actually helps a lot.
Okay. Now, he's got another question.
Do you have any advice for working with a group as a GM, working with a group of characters who the players seem to have kind of varying interests at what they want to do with their characters? Like, one wants to have wacky fun, one wants to build a business empire, one wants to just kill everything.
A short answer to that is have a social contract, and that. And I think there are actually games out there that are trying to sort of formalize that in their rule systems. But agree to what you're here to do. So in our game, the premise is about there's what's called the Special Parcel Service. So within our setting, if you are a convicted criminal, you can pay your debt to society by delivering extremely hazardous parcels to places. and that is the premise of the show and the adventures. And so every time we show up, we know what we're here to do. Our characters still will be at odds with each other at times. They won't necessarily always get along. We can all still kind of have our own side things that we're all good at. But we're at least at the end of the day going, all right, we need to deliver this package so we can one day be free from our crimes. Jorgen having killed lots of cats, for one example. So it ties into world building. You write this whole world, but at the end of the day, did you write a hook? The players are writing hooks. Did you write a hook? And so when the setting was created, we wrote a hook, and the hook was the special parcel service, and that hooked everyone into that. And they had hooks for it, so you're pulling in both directions like Velcro. So that's what I would run with. Is it can be very loose, it can be very specific. You are all the King's Guard, and you've all got to work together for this reason. But your backstory lets you have the guy who has silly adventures. Well, his backstory will have hooks that'll get him into silly adventures, and you give him those moments. Is that helpful?
Yes.
Going back on your failures fall in high risk point, what's the line between that and just being a jerk or being difficult?
So, you want to?
Yeah. Sure.
You know it when you see it. You want to make sure everybody's having fun with it. So if you have a situation where it could be either way, where you're having trouble making a judgment call, like, am I being a jerk here or am I just making it challenging? Then look around the table. Even take a quick poll of your players. Like, are you having fun with this? Also, make the consequences for failure as interesting as success. Like, there's something like some word in some language. Failure is the same word as opportunity. Anyone hear that one?
No. I think another thing about it, when is taking risks and being a jerk going to overlap? So don't think that taking a risk is, all right, so you're visiting the king, and the queen walks into the room, and someone goes, I stab her. I kill her. That's not taking a risk. That's just being stupid. There's no gain. There's no goal there. Unless they're like assassins, and okay, you've decided not to be coy, you're going to go right for it. But if you're just doing stupid, crazy things for the sake of doing it, that's not taking risks and exploring failure. So I think an example of taking a big risk. I played a game. It was Deadlands. It was a Western game, and we were trying to get this guy. He got in his coach. And he started riding away, and I just went. I take out my whip and I just whip onto the back wheel and I just let them drag me. Like Indiana Jones style, being dragged behind the thing and he fights the Nazis on top of the big truck. That was a huge risk because according to the rules, I was probably just going to get beat to death, being dragged behind it. And I went, I'm going to take a risk. I wasn't, I was still playing along with the scene of this guy getting away. So I ended up, the GM let me get beat up, but I was on the coach and we had this really exciting fight where I was on top of the coach wagon and, this whole exciting thing happened. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been, well, if I take too much damage, you're right, I'll just let him get away. Better to not have to find that healing magic. So that's taking risk and saying, yeah, if failure happens, I'm going to get beat up and left on the side of the road for a while. But I wasn't being a jerk. Just going, oh, who is this guy? I shoot him, I don't care. Where's the that's not a risk. Does that answer your question?
What about from a GM's perspective? Because I GM lots of games where my player characters being difficult, and they just basically do it to not piss me off, but just to ruin the plot.
Well, so it's not a competition. Like, if your players are in competition with you, like, and you can't rectify the situation, you find a new gaming group if nobody's having fun.
Yes, yeah, that's we're all here to have fun and tell a story, and if their players just start, you introduce things and they go crazy, just say to them, are we here to have fun? Like, let's have fun. Which is difficult, but you should be honest with your players. You're all spending time doing this.
Right. Okay.
I see someone who hasn't asked a question yet. In the purple.
Yep. So I have a GM who wants to get from point A to point B, but he did this for 4 sessions. Without any fighting, without any real, he basically there was a set storyline that he wanted us to get to, and despite anything we did, we were not changing that storyline at all. So.
I would tell your GM to take up novel writing. You can start a blog for free and write short stories and publish them to the internet. I've done it. It's a lot of fun. But that's not what role-playing games are for.
It was just like, there were so many times we could have been like, okay, and then all of a sudden you walk into a bar and you know, a blade like flashes by your head, but it was like, because he hadn't planned for it, he didn't do anything. So it's like,
Send them to the next one of our panels.
yes. I think I might suggest, do you have videos on YouTube at all, any chance?
Not on. This is actually one of our first.
This is the
giving
first time
advice
we've
sessions.
explained the method to our madness. You can go online and watch episode summaries of us on stage acting like crazy people.
Okay.
And they're awesome.
They might be humorous. Some people seem to
I
enjoy
think
it.
that would help them.
This will probably go up on YouTube.
Because I like him as a friend, but I don't want to be like, you're driving me crazy.
That's why I think the idea of a social contract is essentially get on the same page. Just flat out. Don't just show up and go, we're going to play a role-playing game, and hope everyone understands what you mean by that. Yeah. Say, okay, we're going to tell a story. I expect you guys to do this with me. Cool? All right, let's make some characters. Let's tell the story. So I would broach it that way instead of just going, you know what? You suck at being a game master. Turn into a player and go, I hate having you at my table. Because that's not constructive. We're all here to have fun.
Yeah.
So always keep that in mind. Is there someone else who hasn't? Yeah, all the way in the back.
Do you have any suggestions for someone who's played very little time but is kind of interested in DMing instead of being a player?
If you're new to game mastering, I would follow the advice that we set out in that write interesting scene prompts and then just play to find out. You know, if you're and you may not have a big story arc in mind, as in like really big scene prompts, but from your first session, things will probably have gone so crazy. You can go back and go, oh, I've got so many more scene prompts I can write. I've got so many more crazy little things that can happen. And it'll build, the players are going to write stuff for you, basically.
So I shouldn't be worried about sucking the first time I do this because I've played.
Oh, no. You'll do just fine.
Yeah, don't be afraid. It's the social contract thing. We're all here to have fun, right? Okay, then let's have fun. And then it's a low stress thing. Because they're there to, they're there to entertain you, you're there to entertain them. It's a two-way street. He seems unconvinced, but...
Oh, no, that's my persona.
Oh, okay.
This mantra.
This is a mantra, got it.
So, I play at my middle school, and I try to get the kids there to play, but they either want to be dragons or Morgan Freeman. They go in different directions. Is there any way just to kind of corral players a bit?
They're all new to gaming? Is that it?
A couple of them are. There's like one or two that are into it, but they just go crazy still.
So I would give you the same piece of advice I keep giving several people: is have a social contract, have a hook in your setting that pulls them all in. If you say you're all dragons at the Dragon Council, well, you should probably write a dragon. You should probably be making a dragon character. So give them a hook in what you're presenting them. Don't just give them this don't give them the Forgotten Realms setting book with 10,000 pages and go, well, this is what we're playing. They're going to go, I have no idea what to do with this. So give them a hook. And that's part of that idea of the social contract. And then my second piece of advice is, if one guy wants to play a dragon and the other guy wants to play a hobo or Morgan Freeman, I think was what you said. So this is part of the advantage of us having burned almost every page of the book but two, is that your dragon has just as much going for him as what my dwarf cleric has. So some people are going to make choices because, well, that guy just has a plus 5,000 to everything. Well, just get rid of it. That's not what's interesting. That's a strategy game, and we're here to tell a story. So go ahead and play whatever you want. If I was running that game and someone wanted to play a dragon, I would probably just say great. But that's me. That might be a big risk for other people. Go ahead.
I've had some success. My fiance's kids I taught to play. If you have like pre-roll character sheets even, don't give them anything other than the character sheet. Be like, this is what you are. They can find success in that character. That could be like baby steps on, on the way into what you would like them to do so that you have fun. They could probably have fun within the framework that you can all agree to. You don't necessarily have to let them run amok.
All right, we have about 30 seconds. What's your question?
I was going to just add to that if I could.
Add to it.
As a fairly new DM, if you write episodic based on your characters, give them each their own little episode with an overarching story, that makes it a lot easier with difficult players that want to go in different directions. You give them each their own little piece, but you still get to tell your own story.
Yes, that's. I've heard that referred to as the spotlight episode. Everyone has the spotlight on them during the show, but everyone's still there. Go watch something like Firefly. In each episode, the different characters in the spotlight, but everybody's still on the ship doing fun things. So that can be a way to tie together a whole story, but still give everyone their moment to be like, I'm the gambling addict. Okay, we're gonna have an episode about gambling, but you're around for the other episodes, and that can keep everyone happy. That's not. We kind of run our show that way sometimes, but that can help when you have a really big mix of characters that just wouldn't otherwise necessarily get along.
All right, that's our panel. We are performing our show tomorrow at 5 p.m. in the main event tent. Come check that out.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank myself and Mike Cavallo for being here.